So yeah, Bunmi, tell us about you, what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, for inviting me onto the summit. I'm really excited, and just listening to all the presenters, it's just blown me away. So I'm just really kind of privileged to be on here. So thank you for inviting me. And yeah, just to be part, just to be excited on what's unfolding in 25 and beyond. And I'm already feeling it. There's going to be masses and masses of transformation. It's going to be, oh, I can't wait. So my topic is redefining recovery, and that's the future of addiction. So if anybody doesn't know me, I'm Dr. Olubunmi. I'm a recovery addiction consultant specializing in the energetics of addiction. And I'll tell you more why I do specialize in the energetics of it. But yeah, just really about my story. Back in 2008, and I know it's a Wall Street crash. It was my annus horribilis. Um, I was standing on the steps of my very last rehab. It was central London, lovely, beautiful spring sunny day. It was International Women's Day actually, and it was my last rehab that I was leaving. It was the seventh rehab in 7 years, and yeah, I was dreading absolutely what the consequences were going to be. They were all waiting for me. Had a drink drive, court case coming up, an uncertain future in my career. Divorce papers were served in rehab. It was awful. But I think the one really, really scary thing for me was going back to my two boys, who I'd let down again and again. And it was yeah, I was absolutely desperate. But I knew on those steps that I needed a different approach. I tried everything. To the bottom of my heart, I tried everything, therapies, AA, the whole lot. And for some reason, I just wasn't, I just wasn't responding to any of it. Funny enough, a friend of mine, she um, introduced me to a friend of hers who was a shaman. Now I'm from the medical profession, so for me, anything shamanic, anything spiritual, it just felt on deaf ears. I didn't quite understand it. I thought it was all a bit woo woo. I rolled my eyes, like what the hell's going on? But I was desperate, and I thought, let me just keep an open mind. And I went to see Anna, who a friend of mine today, still lovely, lovely, lovely woman, and I went to see her and had a healing. And I don't know what happened, but there was just a slight shift, and I felt a little bit better. But I went to go and see her a few more times, and I just knew I was going to be okay. Despite everything that was coming at me, I just knew deep down I was going to be all right. Despite all the curveballs coming at me, I felt untouchable. So I just got really, really curious as, what is this? Why am I feeling like there's a sense of optimism, there's a sense of hope despite everything going on? So that was my journey for finding out what this was all about. So I went to Reiki, to workshops. I became a Reiki master. I did crystals, spiritual response therapy. I was just greedy for it. I just had to kind of soak it all up, and it just felt fantastic. It felt so good. And I was handling life on life terms very, very well. Things were unfolding nicely. So I thought, yeah, I am going to really kind of work at this. At the time, I'm still working as a dentist. Um, but I started to see life in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. It was really weird. I just saw that shift in me, and I could feel that this is the way I wanted to go, the path I wanted to go down in terms of helping other people with addictions, not just alcohol. Mine was alcohol. And I came to believe really that any addiction is an energetic disruption. It was a disruption of our energetics. And a lot of people just, roll their eyeballs at me and say that can't be. And it for me it was. That's how it works. I've never ever felt the way I did. It just not felt so good. So just talking about addiction, addiction is the compulsive pursuit of a mood change with compulsively using a substance or a behavior. So it could be alcohol, it could be something like gambling, and it certainly doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. It hasn't got it's definitely got an inclusivity and diversity policy. What the shirt off your back, it takes the shirt off your back, whether you've got money, doesn't matter what color you are, culture, anything, it will go for you. And back in the day, sort of, many, many years ago, we didn't really hear of addiction as such. It was always, somebody knew somebody whose dad gambled a little bit and probably lost a home, or somebody whose mum, was taking Valium, consistently. So it was kind of hush hush. It was taboo. It wasn't really talked about, and it was always like not in my backyard. It was, 3, 4, times removed. But that's becoming a very different scenario. And the stereotypes we've had of people who are addicted, like shooting up in crack dens, or the drunk on the park bench, that was always people's images of what addiction was. And and also, people thinking they're weak-willed, they're failures, and all of that. And that stereotype has really, really changed. So it's no longer not in our backyard, it is in our backyard, and that addiction menu is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's morphing, it's got tentacles everywhere. We've gone from alcohol, drugs to synthetic drugs to other behaviors, which I'll talk about in a minute. So it's getting bigger, this addiction menu, and there's absolutely no discrimination whatsoever from the suited and booted CEO, to, a mom. It's just everywhere. And it's funny because I was just saying to my sons, I was saying, what is your concept of addiction? What do you think addiction is? And they're in their 20s. And Theo just said to me, Mom, you know, everyone's addicted to something, everyone's addicted to something. And it was just a matter of, yeah, everyone's addicted to something, whether it's work, whether it's food, whether it's marijuana. My other son basically said it's normalized, Mom. It's not, it wasn't a taboo. It's not a taboo anymore. It's there and it needs to be, we need to find solutions. But and it was just nice to see that there was not that kind of, oh, that person, addicted to this and that. That there's a shift really in perceptions. And the reason really that, addiction's getting, bigger and bigger and bigger, we're talking about stress and anxiety. We have a lot of that at the moment. Politically, all things are going on, environmentally, economically. So our brains are starting to self-soothe. It's starting to, shut down. It doesn't really want to know. So where there's more and more ways of kind of shutting down by, eating, soothing with food, alcohol, drugs, shopping, you name it. There's new addictions popping up everywhere. Ultra processed foods, they cause stress and anxiety as well, with the fat, sugars, and salts within them. I'm a food addiction counselor, by the way, and believe you me, they can cause panic attacks. And if you think about it, 60% of people's groceries in the UK are ultra processed foods. So that is also contributing to our mental health problems. But the biggest change really in terms of the future of addiction and what is happening is the different landscape of addiction. And we're looking at digital devices, as we all know, the smartphones, the tablets, and other digital devices, the iPad. And I was looking at the technology addiction statistics, and 1.65 billion people now are dealing with some form of addiction with technology. 44% of teens are struggling to really take a break from their devices. 105.6 million gamers are addicted to video games, and 40% of adults who are on social media have low levels of depression. So really, we're looking at addiction in a huge way, and it's a tsunami, and it's frightening. When we look at the mental effects of technological addiction, similar to other forms of addictions, we're looking at depression, we're looking at feeling isolated, senses of euphoria, not really kind of keeping up with your priorities. There's guilt, there's shame, there's secrecy, there's hiding. So it's exactly the same, but we are having a huge tsunami of digital device addiction, and it's something that we can't say is not in our backyard anymore. And as I said, things like food addiction as well, that's making it all worse. Then we've got the synthetic drugs, not just your marijuana. We've got, spice, ketamine, you've got M bombs, you've got flacker. You've got so many different ones like molly and bath salts. And these are being synthesized every single day to really detrimental effects on the person, especially the younger population. So addiction really is a 21st century disease by far. It's a 21st century health crisis. So somehow I knew that energetic disruption was the cause of my addiction. And I really do feel today that this is the way forward, I think, in addiction in general, to start recognizing that. So the future of addiction and the future of kind of healing addiction is frequency, and frequency technology. And that's something that I work with. That is part of my work anyway. And but also the fusion of ancient healing. I felt very, very disconnected when I was drinking. Felt very disconnected from myself and very disconnected from the world. I didn't want to be part of the world. I wanted to be somewhere else always. It was either reading books when I was younger and I would disappear into a book. I'd be the character in a book, or it would be films, or I'd be a character in a movie. And then when I found alcohol, it was that was it. That was it. I was there doing what I wanted to do, I had more courage, I felt great. And I was very disconnected from me. And I kind of realized that it was about reconnecting with myself again. And that was the absolute key for me for wellness and healing is reconnecting with myself on a much, much deeper level. And I just remember, and I think that it was pivotal when I went to my parents' house one day and I was in recovery and I was doing all these things with the healing modalities. And my parents have got this huge living room with like hundreds of pictures of family and friends and everything else. And I happened to see this picture which I hadn't ever seen. And I said to my dad, "Who is this person?" And it was this beautiful Nigerian man dressed in Nigerian outfit, looking fantastic, black and white picture, must have been about 70, 80 years old, really old. And my dad said, "Yeah, I just put that out." And I said, "Who is it?" And he said, "It's your great grandfather." And he told me the story of my great grandfather, and I cried. He was taken as a slave from a bear cutter in Nigeria to America. Miraculously, he made it back to Nigeria, back to his hometown. The trauma, the absolute horrors that that man witnessed. My dad even cried, and he said he never really wanted to tell anybody, but he'd witnessed. But he made it. He was a strong man, and he still remembered his name. And come hell or high water, he wanted to go home, and that was his North Star. And he went from America to England to I think it was Liberia, like Sierra Leone, and across back to Nigeria, back to a Bay cutter to start a family. And I cried because I saw that his North Star was he was returning home, and that was my North Star is I was coming back to myself, and that was just absolutely huge. And I knew that my grandfather or my great grandfather, should I say, Baba Leleron, father of cows, because he was a herder, that he was, I had to see that picture that day. It was for me to see that picture and his story to help me and my journey. And I do believe ancestrally, that I've been helped by him and by many of my other ancestors. So for me, I found my North Star and it was reconnecting with me of who I truly was. The parts of me that I didn't like and the parts that were that I was, ashamed of my color because I went to an all-white school. My name was unpronounceable to many people in Yorkshire. And I was always very ashamed of my color, very ashamed of who I was. And that day when I looked at that picture, I just felt so much pride in myself, so much pride in my name. And, coming back to myself was just the most important thing. It was like something that had unlocked and that was me. And it's not to be ashamed of who I am, and that was the most pivotal moment of my life. And that's why I knew that energy work was what helped me and what guided me. And ancestrally, regaining and finding those roots again was so, so important. And I think really that again, we've been talking about that also is reconnecting with ourselves, finding who we are. So it's not just surface level therapy, it's going really deep and looking at those places, those dark places you thought you'd never ever share and take to the grave with you, that part of you just didn't like it. It's about reconnecting with all of who we are because we are okay. We're okay as who we are. So for me, that was it. But frequency technology is something that I kind of really resonated with. We're talking about bioresonance I work with. There's things like ultrasound that is new now into addiction, neurofeedback, other bioresonance devices, bioelectromagnetic medicine, quantum healing. So for me, it was all about frequency, and this is what I really, really work with my clients, but also things like LifeWave technology, which is patching, which a lot of communities in America are starting to use, which is using our own light from our bodies because we are light, and working with our neuropeptides. So we're talking about regenerative medicine, and again for me, I'm so excited, but again for me, kind of healing from addiction is a top down thing. We're going from the energetic components of addiction in our energy field down to our DNA, down to our organs, because everything still screams addiction. The talking therapies are great. The talking therapies are brilliant, but we're not going deeper. We need to kind of unpeel the onion. We need to unpeel it energetically, then the organs, then we're going down to the extracellular matrix, where we've got the pathogens, where we've got the microbes, where we've got the fungal that again signal addiction. We want more sugar, like candida, it's always scream sugar. And if you've got candida in the body, your head is still going to say, I want more sugar. I want more sugar in my food. I want more sugar in alcohol or whatever your behaviors are. So it is definitely a top-down thing. But LifeWave technology is brilliant. It works with our kind of the light frequency and the copper peptides that we produce stem cells to really regenerate organs that have been damaged in addiction, or any other particular ailment. So that's what that's for. And again, we're going back to the ancient healings. Crystals. Crystals have absolutely exploded in the alpha generation. You know, I've got, cousins and, kids' friends that I know are just naturally going to crystals, naturally knowing what crystals are about. It's almost like something switched on in the alpha generation and they're all adopting it as though it's natural. They're taking it on. I'm a crystal healer, and it was just so good to know that the mineral kingdom is back again. It's back to work with us and back to keep us, really quantum shifters into the next level. So it's the ancient technology, the crystals, that have all the ancestral information that we need to be well. And it's just good to see the alpha generation taking it all on. And I do believe that they are going to be the ones that are going to shift us, and the beta generation, which has just been born now, who really are our crystal kids. They're our frequency. They will know it naturally. It'll be just a knowing to them. And then back to FLP, Anne. As an FLP practitioner, I knew before I met Anne, I wanted to work in the Middle East. This is how I met Anne. And I spoke to a friend of mine and I said, do you know anybody who's worked in the Middle East with, healings and stuff? She goes, oh, I know this lady. Um, uh, I know this lady called Andrea. She went, oh, right. Let me speak to her. But before that, I knew that I needed something else in my practice. There was just something extra that I needed. It was like the pièce de la résistance, which would really help my client. And I knew that I wanted something in September that year. I think it's 2022. And I knew I needed something that was short, something sweet, and something it'll be. And I spoke to Anne about the Middle East, and then she told me what she did. And it was like goosebumps. Do you remember, Anne?
Yeah,
And I said,
absolutely.
and I
Yeah.
said, and do you do a course on this? And she goes, yeah. And I said, when's your next course? And she went, September. I went, go away. September? No. And I said, and how long is the course for? And she went, 2 days. That was it. I said, that is the course I need. And it really is very, very important because in addiction, we have a different perception of time. We perceive time very, very differently.
Mm.
And so it was like, I need to know more of this. And that is how I came to meet Anne. And yeah, same here, Marilyn. It's good synchronicity. And I thought, right, brilliant. And we're on it. And it's just working so well. It really is fantastic. Um, so yeah, as I said, talking about the alpha generation, I think they are the way forward. They will take up the mantle and they'll take it up big time. And Jojo, I really loved hearing you about you talking about frequency as well. With healing, and healing will be about just frequency medicine, regenerative medicine. There'll be less of the allopathic stuff, the cutting, the invasive stuff. But they will know what to do. They will know what to do. So I'm very, very excited about the future of healing, the very excited the future of medicine and the future of addiction, which I think at some point will not exist. It just won't exist. But yeah, I just want to talk about a training that Anne and I are putting together at the moment. And we're very excited about it. It's called Freedom from Addiction. And it is kind of about what I've just talked about and breaking the bad patterns in addiction and just releasing the addictions basically and reinventing someone's life and creating a better future with FRP. So yeah, we're going to talk about it more and we'll probably advertise it shortly. But yeah, it's a very, very exciting time.
Yeah, it
Thank
really
you.
is. That's so brilliant. Thank you so much. We've got some great comments here. But I'll just mention that we've been talking for the past year about putting this together, and the right people are showing up. I haven't had a
Mm,
chance to help Bambi, but I was talking to a network owner in the States, and he just lit up when I talked about what we were doing. And he's actually working with somebody who's getting funding for an addiction organization out in LA, and I said you should interview him. All these things are coming together, but the
yeah.
concept of time around addictions is very,
Mm,
very interesting. That addicts, when you ask them the process they go through with their addiction, they'll only tell you up to the moment. It's like me drinking. I'd only go, whoa, and then we had this big party and it was great and it was funny. I'll never tell you the shitty bit the next day. 'Cause addicts don't. Real people do. Addicts don't. And there's a whole load of time stuff where we process
mm,
and act different with time, and we have got some brilliant material for dealing with that. So you create this massive shift. So it's going to
mm.
be super exciting. So
It
let's
is.
have a look. We got some great comments. Let's have a look. Let's go back. So we got Christine totally agreed. Dr. Olubunmi, we are starting to let go of the fake chemical stuff. Yep. Let's see. Uh let's have a look. Loads I'm trying to find all the comment. I have to scroll back up. Jake, such wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Alabama. The energetic source makes so much sense in filtering down into the physical and mental. Yeah. Let's see what we got. Fascinating, right up my street, Louise. Talk to Louise because she's a neuroscientist. Jake, yes, I've seen a bit about working with the biophotons, such fascinating stuff. Jenny, very moving story. I know she makes me cry every time she tells it. In the previous tour, it really is. What I always say is, Bunby is raw. Yeah, when she tells her story, it's raw. She don't hold back, and it's very powerful. From Jenny, very moving story. In previous talk, when we were asked to think of a word or two to represent how we perceive the soul, I wrote down connection as one of my two words. Uh,
Mm,
Jake put crystal obsessed. Jenny, I feel very ambivalent about social media because it has enabled people to connect across divides and bypass the control of mainstream media. Yeah. I also feel in that the younger are our hope due to this. Yeah. Christine, totally agree, Dr. Alabama. We're starting to let go of the fake chemicals and go more natural. Marilyn, I do love a good synchronicity. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Louise, fabulous, and spoken so much about you. Yeah, I'm very excited because addiction is a big. So I've got. They say there's no such thing as addictive personality. Yes, there bloody is. Marilyn, this is called frequency healing. Is what I'm talking about today. There you go. Um, Maria, being connected to our core, being the essence is so vital. Agree, vibration and natural ways will overtake in our best future. Thanks for sharing your story and inspirations. Nat, thank you. I'll catch the rest on the replay because Nat's in a totally different time zone. Kerry, do you think a lot of kids being diagnosed with ADHD feel uncomfortable living in this matrix? Well, I think that's an interesting
Mm,
question that a lot of people here would answer and say yes. I'm
mm,
sure. No, me, that was really fascinating. Thank you so much. So exciting for the future of addiction. Yeah, well, I put a chunk in, I think, in my fourth book about how our addiction's like the new disease. You know, we're curing
mm.
a lot of diseases, but I think it is the new disease. That's why when Bunmi come along, it just clicked for me. Raf, that was absolutely brilliant. So inspiring. Michelle, reconnecting to self is primary. Heather, I'm sober over 5 continuous years. Well done. It's a big achievement. Raf, wow, amazing. Let's have a look. Louise, the neuroscience, me is shouting, yes, we are energetics. Miriam, so look at all the feedback you got. Miriam, fabulous to hear your story. Very powerful. You are a gift.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
there's so many comments there. It's brilliant. So that's wonderful. And again, we will do more. I think there'll be a lot of standalone events coming up because there's so much more. As people are talking, it makes your mind go, wow, there's so much more to this.